Welcome to this webinar between the Technical Program Management Institute and Skills DG. Um, my name is Omar Hashmi. I go by Om. I'll do a formal introduction in just a second. I appreciate you all taking the time today. Nancy, thanks for helping facilitate. If anyone has any questions during the webinar, please feel free to use the chat. Try to post anything that you have to the host and the panelists. There's a couple of us over here right now. So at the end, we will try to answer some of the questions depending on how much time we have. I expect there is about 78 slides for one. No, I'm just kidding. There's handful of slides just to give you guys some context about what is technical program management. Right? You might have heard of this term. It's a job title that's gaining a lot of popularity. Started most in the West Coast in the technology companies, and it's been growing rapidly across both tech and non-tech organizations. And that's kind of what the agenda for this next about 40 minutes or so is going to look like. Right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I always like to start with painting a picture of where we are today. So I'm a big fan of having metrics and this data-driven, insight-driven approach towards problem solving. So I like to understand the Gartner report for 2025 in terms of IT spend projects that we're going to spend over $5.6 trillion globally on worldwide IT spending in the year 2025. This number is about 10%, approximately 10% higher than what it was last year in 2024 projections. It was somewhere about 5 trillion, 5.1 trillion, and the number continues to grow. And obviously, as most of us will imagine, a big chunk of what companies, organizations, both small and large, tech and non-tech, are spending a lot of money is towards generative AI, RAG AI, all right, with agentic solutions. Right? Here's where the program and project delivery in the world of IT becomes super interesting. Right? Couple this metric or this number that is being projected by Gartner, and they do this every year at the beginning of the year. Couple this with how do we perform as individuals, as team members, as technologists, as IT professionals, as program or project management professionals on execution of these initiatives. What's really interesting is, according to McKinsey's study over the last several years, just 1 out of 200 IT projects meet the three criteria of the iron triangle: the cost, the timeline, and the scope. Right? So 1 in 200. Stick that for a second. That's 0.5% meeting all the success criteria of every project or every program. Imagine out of $5.61 trillion, only 0.5% are going to meet all of those three measures of success. Right? But that's only one way of slicing it, right? Because it's hard to be able to quantify definition of success only against those three pillars. Therefore, this study talks about how many IT projects and programs go over budget. And that's almost one in every second or third. Half of our projects or programs in the world of IT spend are delayed. And more than half of them, almost two-thirds, do not actually realize the value that was originally intended. Right? And as the study drills down further, one of the things that we find out is, hey, what's causing this? Like, why are we here? We're spending so much money, we're spending so much time across organizations, both tech and non-tech, large and small. And we try to identify some common themes: a lack of focus, executional issues. And these are the top two elements that tell us combined, you're talking about a quarter of the projects and programs suffering from these pain points. There are other elements with respect to skills, content, and that's primarily the biggest driving factor why we are here today, why the initiation of the concept of technical program management. What's happened in the industry over the course of the last, I'm going to say 36 months or so, 36 to 48 months, in the last 3 to 4 years? What has happened is, take a look at the names of the companies and the logos of the companies that you see on the screen today. You have one of the largest banks in the country. You have a very large healthcare provider. You have insurance companies. You have fintech organizations. And this suite is being followed. What's common in these companies today? Think about this for a second, right? Like, they seem to be pretty widely distributed. So it's not their vertical. it's not their service segment. What's common is in the last 4 years, these organizations have taken a very different strategic perspective towards the outlook for agile roles. We've all heard of the roles, the agile scrum master, the agile coach. In some organizations, we have them termed as agile delivery leads. We've seen agile project managers. We've seen senior or enterprise agile coaches, technical agile coaches, and those are great roles, right? They've had a lot of value delivery. They've given a lot of success to a lot of these organizations that we see on the screen. At one point or another, these organizations have gone out and said, that's it. We're moving on from the vanilla, the implementation of agile fundamentals and agile adoption. We feel like we've gotten it. We want to see what's next. That's what brought us into existence in 2023. TPM Institute, Technical Program Management Institute. Our vision is every IT project or every IT program should be run by a technologist. And we've been very methodical about using the word technologist. And we'll talk about that in a few slides. Our team, we comprise of professionals who work in large tech and non-tech organizations, serving as technical program managers and technical program management professionals with depth of expertise in both technology as well as program management and project management. The methodology, the philosophy that we bring to the table as an organization, as an institute, is we've all heard about the concept of going from project to product. Our approach is program to business mindset. That's the mindset shift that we are driving. No longer are you looking at your project in the form of scope, cost, and time alone. You are putting on the hat of an entrepreneur, running it like an actual end-to-end business. And that's the way we see most large tech organizations look upon this role of a technical program manager. So once again, my name is Omar Hashmi. I go by Om. I have been in the service delivery space for over 10 years. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the largest organizations, both technical and non-technical, in my career, playing various different roles, and most recently, over the last 4 years, serving as a principal technical program manager, helping out various different organizations. And my approach or my focus is to make sure that we all walk away from here with the idea of technical program manager approach is an entrepreneur's hat. So you start thinking of every project, every program with the perspective of how would I do this if this was my business? If this was a business where I was responsible for P&L, if this was a business where I was responsible for people retention, if this was a business where I was responsible for customer service reviews, every single thing, that's how we start thinking about running our technical programs. Okay, so gave you guys a little bit of an overview about myself, a little bit about the TPM Institute. We've been in existence for the last 2+ years. We've been helping grow the community of technical program managers across the globe. We offer training services, assessment services, and as part of that, what we're hoping today is you guys get a good flavor of what exactly is technical program management, right? Because it's a nice fancy title now, but what exactly is it? What does a technical program manager do? So I'm going to start off with a true story, right? So about 6 months ago, walked into one of the larger banks. I was working as a consultant, came out and brought in to do an organizational team level assessment. And one of the things that we observed was we got into an IT program that the team was delivering. And as part of the retrospectives, we had the Agile Scrum teams within a retrospective. And as part of the retrospective, one of the leaders happens to be in the room and they asked the question, hey, John Doe, I'm going to anonymize the name. Hey, John Doe, can you tell me when this next release is going to be successfully deployed? And I quote, the answer from John Doe is, how am I supposed to answer that? I'm just the scrum master of the team. When I started my career in the technology space or in the technology delivery space, I was envisioning everything that we are seeing, a lot of what we are seeing right now with agentic AI and chatbots and all kinds of different technology solutions that should be making things a lot more automated, a lot more faster, and a lot more cooler. But what you start unpeeling the onion, you start realizing more towards the right end of the spectrum. And that's a combination of all the facets that lead to the numbers that we saw in the earlier slide from McKinsey's study around 1 in 200 projects being successfully executed across the three vertices of the iron triangle. Right? The role of a agile scrum master, an agile coach, is what continues to evolve in these organizations that we're going to talk about. When we start thinking technical program management, a lot of organizations, a lot of personnel, they start thinking sometimes, hey, technical program management might be associated with getting meetings on the calendar, working like a traditional IT project manager. Am I also working as a tech lead? Like, am I actually responsible for solution architecture diagrams? Am I helping the team decide what is our team's cloud strategy? What am I doing? Or am I just a product officer? Am I a product owner? What's exactly my role? How am I fitting in within the landscape of an organization? Right? And to best think about this, or to best answer where the role fits, I think it's important for us to realize what are some of the roles that exist within a typical standard technology program organization, right? Like, what kind of roles exist? What kind of companies within both types of organizations? I keep referring to a technical organization and a non-technical organization, right? So technical organizations, what I mean by that is organizations who are responsible for building or creating new technology. So think about the Apples, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, the Metas of the world, with responsible for building new tech, as opposed to a large healthcare company or a large insurance company. I'm not saying that they're not building new technology, but they generally tend to rely on technology that's being built to enable success and modernize and improve operational excellence in their businesses, right? So regardless of the type of organization you're in, you would have come across at some point in your career, and some of you might be playing some of the roles that we see on the screen, right? You will have heard terms like a project manager, a scrum master, a product owner, a program manager, a tech lead, a engineering manager, a portfolio lead. Think about the roles that you see on the screen right now. What are these roles responsible for? What is the expectation for each one of these roles? What are these roles collectively trying to do? Collectively, these roles are trying to deliver some sort of business value. The intention is whether you're a product owner or a product manager or a project manager or a portfolio manager or a portfolio lead, eventually the end goal is you lead to some sort of return on value investment from a business perspective. That's the intention, right? That's the whole concept. That's the whole idea. Then the question becomes, why the need for a new role, right? If I already have this many roles, and on top of that, we added the agile roles of Scrum Masters and an Agile coach, and then an enterprise Agile coach, and then we went the scaled Agile route where we brought in the release train engineer, right? And the solution train architect and all these other roles. And the question becomes like, why another role? If they're all responsible for value, what is the benefit, or why is the industry moving in the direction of a new role called technical program manager? To answer that question best, I think we have to take a step back and start thinking, is it really a new role? And it turns out 1960s, mid 1960s is the first time the role was actually coined. A TPM's Guide to Survival. Fast forward for the next 60 years, because I'm not going to walk us through a history lesson of the last 60 years in this fun workshop or fun context today. But just to give you a brief understanding, right? We went from there to process improvement in Six Sigma. Mid 1980s, Project Management Institute initiates a term called PMP, Project Management Professional. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. Some of you are probably certified, and some of you are practitioners, which is excellent, right? And then you go in early 2000, 2001, Snowbird, Utah, Agile Manifesto gets signed, right? Where we then lead to the concept of becoming a certified Scrum Master with Scrum Alliance. And then 5 years from there, we start seeing technology advancement allowing for the growth more towards CI/CD pipelines and DevOps and infrastructure as code, all types of different technical elements that are speeding time to market. Continuous evolution of the needs of these both tech and non-tech organizations lead us to, hey, we need to be able to do this beyond one team. And here comes Scaled Agile in early 2011. And now, about 10 years in, somewhere about 19 and 20, we start looking at this role of a technical program manager, right? So this is not a brand new role. It's something that has been gaining traction for the last 5 years, growing across the country and now globally. So still, compared to some of the other roles, Scrum Masters, IT project managers, IT program managers, still relatively a new title, right? It's generally very different for technical organizations versus non-technical organizations. And the intention is in technical organizations, the governance structures that you may have, the overall delivery models that you may have, the footprint of the technology teams that you might have, the red tape that you might have between a tech organization and a non-tech organization is generally very different, right? So keeping those things in mind, the role of a technical program manager is very different in some cases between a technical organization and a non-technical organization, depending on the role, depending on the project, depending on the program that you get picked for or assigned to. There is an expectation that you have a level of technical depth. By no means is the expectation to be a successful technical program manager, you must be writing code in Python or JavaScript, or you should be a certified AI ML specialist. But the more depth you have in technology, the better you're able to serve as a technical program manager. Right? And as the word suggests, the idea or the fundamentals of project and program management are baked right in when it comes to the role of a technical program manager. So, who's looking for a technical program manager? This happens to be a relatively recent extract from some common job portals to give you guys an idea of what kind of organizations, who's looking for the role of a technical program manager. And it's by no means limited to just the organization that you see on the screen. All right, but I want you all to take a look for a second, realize a few different things that will stand out to you. All right, one, the wide variety of types of organizations that are looking for the role of a technical program manager, where they see value being added by this role. Second thing I also want you to realize is the level of expertise that's being desired. We have a role at the top left that is looking for a junior level person or a junior level candidate. We have a role at the bottom right where someone's looking for a mid-level candidate. Then we have a role where at Netflix, again, the idea is junior level, right? So you have a wide variety of different levels that people are looking for. And if you look at the bottom on the left middle, you will see a mid to senior level. So the opportunities exist at every single level. Whether you're starting in this role or you're a semi-professional or you've been working in this role as a professional, the opportunity exists, the market is there, right? The question is, what exactly is a technical program manager? Right? That's the $1 million question. So I'm going to refer back to Joshua Teeter's book, something called the Handbook, Technical Program Manager's Handbook. There's a second edition of it. If you haven't yet, I would highly recommend the book. Reach out to Josh, great guy, great book. It talks at length about managing technical programs and projects at large organizations like Amazon. According to the book, according to the handbook, the idea is that the role of a technical program manager is a sum of a project manager and a technical expert who together are more powerful than one of those two roles alone. That's the idea. At the Technical Program Management Institute, on the other hand, we actually look at this role of a technical program manager as the equivalent of a sum of three parts. The first part of this three-piece hierarchy or this three-piece recipe is becoming a technologist. Now, again, I say this word, having thought about and deliberated with our team quite a bit so that people don't shy away from, hey, I've never written a line of code. I don't read code. I don't understand code. I cannot be a technical program manager. That's not the intention by any means. The intention is a technologist has a strong grasp of the principles of high-level system design, low-level system design. They have strong depth in certain elements or certain areas of technology. So think about the different types of domains that we might see of the role of a technical program manager. That's the first element. Second piece is your traditional project and program management. Think about the ability to come up with project plans, RAID logging, dependency management, risk mitigation. Those elements that generally are looked upon by individuals who might be practicing in an agile or scrum environment as, hey, we've never heard about this. This is so anti-agile. At no point, at least to the best of my knowledge, in any agile scripture has anyone said, have no risk mitigation. At no point in my knowledge, across my years of experience, has anyone ever said from an agile fundamentals perspective, hey, don't have a release plan. On the contrary, agile recommends frequent releases and having release planning. So those elements that a lot of agile practitioners tend to more often than not shy away from, or in some cases fall off the cliff against, those elements of traditional standard project and program management are blended along with your technology feather in the hat. And then the last piece is agility, the ability for you to be able to pivot, the ability for you to be able to deliver fast, the ability to be able to deliver incrementally. What does a technical program manager eventually do? Right? Like, you've given me all of these wonderful elements of the recipe. Like, but what is my day-to-day going to look like? So let me tell you what the role of a technical program manager would look like from both a technical and a non-technical organization perspective, having served in both. So let's say I work for a large technical organization that is responsible for a B2C product that is responsible for making online payments. And we have a new product that we are launching, or a new service that we're launching, where we are going to start accepting cryptocurrencies as a mode of online payment. Programs of that magnitude, programs which will require cross-functional delivery, generally will get assigned a strong technical program manager in large tech organizations. They will be supported by a number of different roles, but two roles that will immediately stand out is typically we will have an engineering manager, somebody who will be responsible to be your technology delivery lead. In non-tech organizations, this might be a tech lead, a senior engineer, engineering manager as well. The second side is on the business side, which will generally be a chief product officer, product visionary, a product manager, who you will work to make sure that you have a very good sense of your vision. The question then becomes, hey, how is this different than a Scrum Master? Like, I thought the Scrum Master is pretty much doing the same thing, or the IT project manager is doing the same thing. Here's where the lines start to delineate with the role of a technical program manager. While a traditional IT project manager or an agile project manager or an agile Scrum Master might be limiting themselves to, hey, the role of the product is to go ahead and prioritize and give me requirements, a technical program manager goes further to recognize the North Star of the program. And they start realizing, how do we best hit? How do we best prioritize? How do we best make the sound technology decisions so that we can prioritize, so that we can pivot, so that we can deliver value in incremental chunks, both from a process as well as from a technical perspective. Irrespective of the role, this is a role that requires a lot of communication across the board. So think about the same project that I've just transactions using a large cryptocurrency mechanism, let's say a Bitcoin. What are all the different facets of this cross-functional organization that you will be working with? You'll be working with legal, you'll be working with compliance, you'll be working with your sales team, your marketing team, your engineering team, your product team. It pretty much cuts across the board. And that's the role of a technical program manager, to be able to slice across so that you are able to help programs achieve the North Star that they're chasing. How can you become a successful technical program manager? Number one, start honing your technical skills. All right, I cannot stress this enough. If you've never written a line of code, raise your hand to yourself, because I can't see you today, but raise your hand to yourself if you think, hey, I've at least once in my career introduced myself as a project or program manager and said, but I'm not technical. If you are in that category, shake my hand because I was once in that category. You can start this journey by simply starting to figure out where do you start. Start looking at high level system design, low level system design. Start thinking about, hey, how do I upskill myself on the technology side? There's so much opportunity. Second, if you come from a technical background, hey, what do I need to learn on the project and program management? How do I efficiently create a quick release plan? How do I manage dependencies? How do I connect the dots? This role is a very challenging and very demanding opportunity. As you might have noticed in one of the roles, you can be compensated close to $1 million a year in some of the larger tech firms for the right roles at the right levels to become a technical program manager. And it requires a certain level of EQ so that you can effectively communicate, have the vision, have the sharing ability to be able to translate into a story, and practice both financial best decision making along with responsible leadership. And this responsible leadership is a major piece right now, especially given the fact that we constantly see the evolution of Gen AI tools, Gen AI capabilities, Gen AI projects, everything that we are seeing across the industry. By no means is the role technical program management limited in technology or technical organizations alone. Right. So if you look at the job descriptions and the job titles, as a matter of fact, I'm going to recommend some of you do this. If you go on LinkedIn right now, and if you're happy in your jobs, please don't do this and don't take this as the opportunity to go look for a new job. But if you are in the market, I would highly recommend go on LinkedIn today. Go in LinkedIn jobs, search for the job title, technical project manager or technical program manager, and then search for the title, Scrum Master. And you will see the distinct number of how 30% more jobs exist for technical program managers today compared to Scrum Masters. Right? This is the North Star organizations are chasing right now to make sure they bring in individuals who wear the entrepreneurial hat, who look at work in the form of, hey, I need to get this done because this is my baby. This project, this product, the North Star associated with it is what I am going to deliver. And that's the same between technical organizations as well as non-technical organizations. Where it becomes a little bit different in non-technical organizations, as I was telling before, is the ways of working are generally slightly different between tech and non-tech organizations. So the process of hiring, the process of deploying, the process of cross-team collaboration and communication, those are the elements that are different, right? We, we at the Institute have this notion of something called the Technical Program Management Health Radar. And as part of the Health Radar, we assess where do you as an individual stand today in the sphere of these 5 pillars, right? From a people perspective, from a process perspective, from an influence perspective, technology perspective, and from a system thinking perspective. When you look at it from a technical program management landscape perspective in the industry, you start with a staff technical program manager in the industry. In most organizations, that's the entry level to become a technical program manager, where you're aware of how do I start the build of a new system? How do I go modernize a legacy application from COBOL into JavaScript or mainframe into Python, right? Where do I start? How do I start? How do I assess? How do I use Martin Fowler's strangler pattern to unpeel the onion? How do I go about doing that strategically from a technology perspective, beyond just the process element of it? Right? As you grow from your staff technical program manager role, organizations are very keen in bringing on individuals that are domain specific technical program managers. And when you start thinking domain specific, the depth of technology advancement, and that's the technologist piece in the three-pronged technologist, PM, agilist recipe for becoming a technical program manager. The deeper you can go in the technology element, the better you become to serve a specific domain of technical program management. You almost become a pseudo subject matter expert in some of these domains. There's a huge demand right now for TPMs with depth of artificial intelligence projects and programs, because the challenges associated with this today are not very well realized. Organizations, teams that are spending billions of dollars, like we saw at the beginning of this conversation today, they're also worried about spending that amount of money and not being able to value realize or value capture. Another area which is of severe importance in our industry today is security. So if you can go deeper, learn about cybersecurity, learn about data privacy, learn about data science, those elements, those pieces remain in very high demand in industry. Now, by no means am I saying the web or the mobile or the network or the infrastructure domain are stagnant. A lot of these organizations also are heavily investing in making sure organizations are running projects and programs, but with technical program managers. Last couple of things. Once you are on a technology program, once you are running it in the form of a technical program manager, your goal are to reach and achieve the North Star of that program, whether in the case of that service that we want to launch, for us, that North Star might be X number of transactions per day, X number of dollars in revenue per day, or X number of dollars in sold transactions per day. Right? That's the metric that we are chasing. But that does not mean the technical footprint or the technical goals of a program are second to anything. When we build a large product or a large system, what you see on the screen are the elements that govern our success, right? And interestingly enough, we always like to start with security being a key element. Who's authorized to do what? How do we authenticate? How do we apply zero trust? All these elements, all those buzzwords, keywords, learn and see where and how to apply. How do I make sure that how am I going to prevent a Gen AI bot or an agent to scrape information from a public website like I might have today? What are the methodologies? What is the technical footprint that I will place in my firewalls to prevent that from happening? How do I make sure that my system can recover from failure? How will I make this more resilient? All these pieces, all these elements is what we are trying to put together in the form of a technical program manager, because you're thinking of this program as your business. All right. So think about if you have a business, or think about when you own a home or you rent a home, what are all the things you do to make sure that the place that you live in is secure? You make sure the door is locked. You make sure that the windows are locked. You make sure that you've installed a camera, a ring, or some other security mechanism so that you can keep an eye on it. Same methodology principles applied from a technical perspective. The last thing I want to tell you all is, as you start thinking about your role as a technical program manager, ask yourself this today. How would you design a new shopping mall in the middle of a large metropolitan city? How would you design a large shopping mall in the middle of a large metropolitan city? I happen to have come from Philadelphia, so think about large metropolitan city like Philadelphia. And with that, I will share my email address right here in case you missed it. We have a technical program management bootcamp coming up a few weeks from now. If someone's interested, certainly scan the QR code and feel free to register for the workshop. And if you're interested in connecting with me, my email address is on the screen. Feel free to connect. And if you're interested in my connecting over LinkedIn, you can also do that. Let's go back there.
And you've got 3 questions. I'm not sure if you can see them at all.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Yep.
Okay. Audio is okay. I don't see the questions. I'm sorry, Nancy. Do you mind
That's
reading them
okay.
out to me?
So the first question was, what is the difference between program manager versus project manager?
Great question. So let's start there. Typically, and again, this is something we cover at length in the workshop too, where we're at the question. Great question. Project manager are generally tasked with, according to the PMI's PMBOK definition, book definition first, is we're tasked with an endeavor that has a clear start and end goal and a clear start and end date. And generally, it's of a smaller magnitude, something that may involve 1, 2, 3 small cross-functional teams. Programs generally tend to be a combination or accumulation of multiple smaller projects. So programs are much larger projects or a combination or series or sum of number of different projects. So think programs as scaled, projects as individual. Hopefully that answers the question.
Awesome. Thank you. Second one is I'm running into issues with the role of initiative owners being in direct conflict of the technical program manager, especially determining the executive status of a program slash project. Any suggestions on how to gain consensus with business?
Very good question again. Um, I'm going to speak from memory a little bit and do me a favor, whoever asked this question, feel free to send me an email. I'll happily do an offline conversation with you as well. One of the key challenges, and I was mentioning one of the key traits to be a successful technical program manager is around making sure that you hone your communication skills, both written and oral. So when you run into a conflict situation in that fashion, my one recommendation, almost off the cuff, and without knowing the full context, is see where you're able to leverage data. And here, data is beyond how many clicks am I getting, how many downloads am I getting. You're also looking at a different element of can I use data around how much work has been effectively deployed or completed. Some teams use very standard basic vanilla metrics of agile teams as story points and velocity charts. Look for more deeper metrics where you can actually showcase your defect ratio to successful deployments, for example, right? Those types of metrics. See if you have metrics that we can drill deeper in to be able to quantify the statuses of your programs and projects. And feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to connect. Hopefully that
Yeah,
answers
and she's
partially
oh
at least.
sorry.
Yep.
She's got one more question to lead up to that, and then we have one more after that. So
Mhm.
Caroline again asked, how does the TPM certification align with PMI?
So we're in the process of working with the PMI right now to get ourselves in that network as well. We do get PM, how's it called? PDU credits as part of the workshop right now. Those are self circulated credits. I think, including for this session that we've just run, you will
Hmm.
be able to also get, if I'm not wrong, Nancy, one PDU.
Yes, that is correct. Yep. Yes.
Awesome.
And the last question I'm seeing, what symptoms or dysfunctions to look for that could suggest an org can benefit from a TPM? Do you have a checklist or assessment framework to drive that?
So great question, right? And that health check, we do have a proprietary framework that we've built, both by looking at organizations, technology organizations, as well as non-tech organizations. The fortune that we've had with the team that we've built is we've been blessed that we've had footprint presence across the largest tech organizations in the country and globally, plus some of the largest non-tech organizations. So think largest banks, largest utilities, largest insurance companies. And that's there is a way, there is a mechanism, there are levers that we actually go about seeing from a pull perspective. So yeah, hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, we've got some other ones too. Do you still have some time?
Yes, I do
Okay.
see them now, if I'm
You
not
do,
wrong.
okay. Well, there's one
Perfect.
that you
Now I can.
probably don't see, but
Yeah, go
Samuel
ahead.
asks, do you feel TPM's currently embracing IA in the day and life of the role, or is this still a majority who are on the fence?
No, I think it's being generally embraced and it's generally being used and it's being used for efficiency gains. Let
Awesome.
me let me look at some of the other ones. Is there a specific prereq to do this TPM bootcamp? So, Laura, great question. We don't necessarily have a prereq called out. We do hope that someone who's coming in has some prior experience of working in the technology world. So it's not the first time they're hearing the word agile or scrum or project management. Um, so that's the only thing I would recommend. We start at the very fundamental basics of, hey, what does code look like? I can tell you this. If any of you has ever felt intimidated by looking at lines of code, when you walk away after 2.5 days, you will no longer worry about having to call yourself, I'm not technical, right? Because we make sure that we all walk away as technologists, not engineers, not software developers, not software testers, but technologists, somebody who understands the life cycle end to end, and somebody who can apply that understanding effectively in conversation that they lead as part of running a program. Tina, what is the criteria for becoming certified? Great question. So we're in the process of implementing an examination as part of the certification process. That examination is going through a lot of reviews. So until probably end of April, the criteria is attend the workshop as long as the instructor who's been authorized by our team believes that you have successfully met the learning objectives by a series of interactions, exercises, quizzes that are part of the workshop, you will be deemed a certified technical program manager. Good information. Thank you, Tina. For somebody who is already technical, Drew, what are some ways to develop the leadership skills needed to become an effective PPM? Drew, excellent question, because we see this a lot. There's a lot of IT project program managers who are leaning towards technical program management, learning the T element of program management or TPM. And then there is the technologists, which might be someone like yourself, who are already well skilled on the technology element, are looking to hone in on the P piece of the TPM. Drew, again, I think if you get a chance, check us out, get a sense of what we cover from the fundamentals of project and program management. That'll give you a lot of information about the leadership style, the considerations that you give in. One of the things I always like to call out is part of our workshop is the only course in this stream that effectively calls out or clearly calls out the need to understand political situations within large tech and non-tech organizations, right? The landscape of being able to navigate in different organizations from a governance, from a delivery perspective, they teach you a lot from a leadership honing perspective. So hopefully that answers that. Will there be a PDU code for this webinar, Nancy?
Yeah. Yeah, so I see a couple of people have asked that question. Yes. So both you will get a code in the next couple of days along with recording for this in an email. So that email will have your PDU code in it. So, oh, yeah, it looks like those are all the questions I see in my question box. Does anybody have any other questions for Owen before he jumps off?
Okay, I appreciate it all. Thank you so much. Feel
Yeah,
free
thank
again to
you.
check us out, and hopefully we'll see you in one of our workshops soon. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you all.